Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Greg Marshall, and today I'm here with
Jodi or Gil Brown.
All right, and we're going to go ahead and go over how to write, market, and sell a book successfully. So I'm going to interview Jodi, as she's been successful in writing her books and even more so selling her books. So I hope that this interview kind of gives you some insight on what's going to help with writing your book as an author and trying to spread your message and get the word out. So my first question is, what is a big tip that we should be paying attention to when writing a successful book? So the actual writing of it.
I think the most important thing with writing a good book is making sure that the quality is high enough that the story or the topic, that it is actually a good book, because that's the biggest problem to start with. Most people go through some of the effort and they get things down on paper, but it still needs to be professionally edited. You still need to go through all of the same processes that you would have an editor go through and that the professionals would go through. Even if you're not sure if you're ever going to get to that point of having a traditional publisher, you need to still go through all of those steps, because if the quality is not high enough, even the self-publishing industry is not going to accept the book any longer. They will actually dismiss the book if it has too many mistakes in it.
Got it.
So you can only reach a certain number of mistakes. If there are more than 6 grammatical errors in a book, it is dismissed and not even allowed on the site anymore.
I did not even know that. So that's a good tip, and I think I look at a book as a product, right? So
absolutely,
writing a good book is the same as creating a strong product that people want to use. So you want to take your time and energy and focus, because you could actually market yourself out of business if the product is bad.
Very easily, very easily. If you put something out that is not ready to be released, but you're so anxious to get it out there and the product is subpar, if the writing quality is not high enough, if there are too many mistakes, grammatical errors, sentence structure, if the characterization isn't well done, you will not sell future books, because you will actually be harming yourself. So don't try to speed through the process. Take the time and go through the steps thoughtfully and thoroughly, and get the help that you need. If you need to hire someone to do editing, don't use your family members. They're great to give you an initial thought, but you're not going to get the professional kind of response that you would get if you hire someone.
I think what Jodi is saying as well is invest in your business.
Absolutely.
Right? So a lot of times, and I've been there too with bootstrapping, and maybe cash is tight, but if that's the case, that doesn't mean you don't want to skim out on making good product, because then your cash flow will never become good.
Correct.
Because the product isn't good, so it's not good enough to drive referrals and word of mouth, which is the holy grail of sales and marketing, right?
And the things that you definitely should not skimp on at all is the editing, because a good editor will help make sure, if you've got a fictional story, they'll help make sure that the flow is right, and they'll talk to you about the arcs and the curves and all of that. And so you need to make sure that the editing is excellent, but also the cover of the book. I know in this day and age, many of the self-publishing companies have create a cover here on our website. And
typically they're not that good.
They are not that good, and you can always tell when someone has used that or done an inexpensive, cheap little way of getting around it instead of using a professional designer. And that's something that I have just learned. We really do judge a book by its cover, and it really is worth it to invest and get a good designer to create an appealing cover that's going to sell the book for you.
So how do you typically, your first book, how did you get the word out? I mean, what did you do to kind of generate the buzz or awareness?
I did a lot of, and I still do a lot of public speaking. I go visit a lot of organizations and I talk to them. And essentially my book, when they buy my book, they're buying this product, they're buying me, because I am the product.
Exactly.
And so when you go and speak, then really they are investing in you. And so if they like you, then they will buy your book no matter what the content is.
Exactly.
It doesn't even matter what the book is about. If they like you, they will buy your book.
Well, that's a great point, because I think a lot of authors forget that they are the writer, right? So people are buying them as a person.
Yes.
So utilizing, in-person strategies like
Absolutely.
speaking one-to-many and talking to a company or a group or your local church or your organization. All that stuff accounts for getting the word out and building the buzz. And I think authors should take the possibilities and opportunities ahead of them to do that, because maybe if you feel a little bit introverted or scared to get out there, I think it's a great way to extend your comfort zone. But I can promise you this, you will sell books and get the word out if you're willing to do it.
And ultimately, the book will not spread unless you have done the first couple of steps that we talked about, which is you have to write a good book, and it has to be professionally done, and you have to have a good cover. Because you may be able to sell to the people in the room when you are there, but if you want it to go beyond that, then you need to have the word of mouth. And that's when having a good story or good content in your book, that's when it really comes to play. Once you start getting it out there, this is not meant to be discouraging, but the way that it is referred to in the book industry is if you can get 10,000 copies of your book out there, then you had enough people read it that if it's a good book, which usually if you've got 10,000 copies that are in distribution, then you've done something right. Then it will keep going by word of mouth, which ends up being a very, very important thing, because as many people as you can speak to, you might be able to sell to, but you're not going to be able to reach everyone that can be reached by your sphere of influence and by the people that you can market to. So
something that Jodi's talking about is what I like to call grow from within. So it's a grow from within strategy, meaning you need the individuals in your circle, people who have read it, to like the product so much that they then spread it to their 10 people. And then that's how the real growth happens, versus trying to only sell books to people who don't know you or have never read it. You don't have the opportunity to kind of let that idea spread. So I like that. 10,000 is a good, that's something that I was unaware of too, is that 10,000 in distribution would make that much of an impact.
And that's kind of known to be the secret number. And then the other thing is reviews on the book. If you can get positive reviews on your book, even if there's some negative ones thrown in there, if you can get a couple of hundred reviews on your book, which is not as easy as it sounds.
No, it's I've seen that
it
it's
is
very
difficult. Very difficult. Even people who read and love your book and send you a message and tell you that they have loved your book still may not go on and leave a review. And people who you know and they're your neighbors and they buy your book and they tell you that they're going to write a review. It just is not always that easy. It does take time. It does take time for them. The other thing is Amazon is also very picky about who they allow to leave reviews. And so if they see that you're personal friends, if they see that you're connected online, they may think that it's not a real review.
Legitimate reader.
And so they might kick it out. And so people do need to be able to prove that they actually have the book. So snap a picture of the copy of the book and post it with the review, and then it's much more likely to get on because they'll know that this is legitimate. You actually have a copy of the book and have read it.
What are some other strategies you've used in the past? Because I've looked at your other books and seen that you've had lots of reviews. So what are some strategies that you could share with some of the authors out there that they could use to maybe increase the likelihood of their happy readers to put a review up?
Well, the simplest answer is ask them. when you know that someone has read the book, especially if they've communicated with you and told you that they read it and they liked it, thank them so much for reading it. Have a little conversation with them via email or text or however they've reached out to you, and then say, would you be willing to do this for me? And most of the time, the fact that the author is responding to them in person, they are so thrilled to have this one-on-one communication with you. They'd be willing to do just about anything at that point in time. So ask them to leave a review. Say, would you put a review on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Goodreads? Goodreads accepts nearly all reviews, and it's actually much easier to get reviews in Goodreads than it is on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble. And so you, an author might have anywhere between 30 and 50% more reviews on Goodreads than on one of the retail platforms, because the retailers are very picky about making sure the people have bought through their retail channel before they allow a review to go up.
So question, most authors I believe would love to hit the bestsellers list, and you have done that.
I have done that.
So explain to us kind of the process, how that worked, how that happened, how did you feel, like just kind of share some tips too on how an author that has this ambition to become a bestseller? What do they have to do? What does it really take?
It takes a lot of work. A lot of work. You think that you've done the work once you finish writing the book, and that is so far from the truth. That is just the beginning of the journey. It really is probably about a third of the effort. You really, once the story is complete and your manuscript is done, you're probably about a third of the way through, and then you need to spend a third of the time doing all of the professional activities, and then another third of your time really focused on the marketing. And again, that can include speaking and other things. But really, when you have the desire and the goal to reach a bestsellers list, and it depends, to reach a New York Times bestselling list, for most authors is not even going to be a realistic possibility. The number of copies of books that you would have to sell in order to do that, you would literally have to have multiple thousands of dollars in marketing efforts, or you would have to have a major, not even any traditional publisher, but you'd have to have a major publisher putting a lot of time and money and ad space into pushing that. In order to reach a retailer's bestsellers list, you do have a much greater likelihood of doing that if you really have a concentrated, focused time where you are dropping the price of the book so that you can have a sale of sorts or a promotional time. And you can utilize, there are many book marketing promotional sites that when you have a promotion on your book, they will send that promotion out to their subscribers.
Okay.
So you need to utilize that, and all at the same time, drop the price of your book, have a special time that it's going to go on sale, and then let all of the promotional sites know that these are the days that the book is going to be on sale, so that everyone can send the messages to their constituents at the same time. Another key thing is where you list it, what categories you list it on. For authors who are going through this process, it's called the BISAC categories, and it's how you categorize your book for retail sales. So is this a fiction or a nonfiction? It's essentially a micro genre. It's your genre, and then they just dial down and dial down and dial down until you have kind of a micro genre or a niche for your book.
Got it.
And you need to choose that well, because if you don't select that category well, then
you're reducing
your chances. Because if you're up in a category against only huge top sellers, people with huge names or extensive platforms who sold millions of books, and they see their book and your book, you're not going to have much of an opportunity. For sure. So choosing those categories is very, very important. Obviously, they still have to be applicable to your book. You can't choose you can't choose a small niche category that doesn't apply, and the retail outlets won't let you anyway. They will do an analysis and they'll
to make sure that it's legitimate.
And they'll check all of the keywords in the category against the content of your book. So they won't let you go into a category that you don't fit into. Okay. But it definitely is important to choose a category that has fewer hit titles at that point in time, or smaller names. Got it. That increase your chances. And then just put all of your efforts into doing a promo, getting it out there, hitting it all at the same time, and do as much marketing as you can to the point where you're uncomfortable, where you're every single day during the promo that you're really pushing the book to your own fans and followers, as well as just to promoters and to the public, and doing ads. And
what would you say? So that kind of leads me to the next question that I think not only authors but a lot of people could learn from. What is that time frame where, like, how long do you do the promotional process when you first launch a book? So are you doing that for one day? Are you doing that for 90 days? Are you doing that for a week? I mean, explain that.
Everything is really a long-term strategy, and when you launch a book, or when you really want to make a push to become a bestseller, you don't keep up that level of marketing and advertising forever, but you have to do a real push, and it's not for a day or two. You really have to make a concerted effort. You might be doing videos for multiple days. Maybe for 2 weeks in a row, you're doing live videos every single day. Interviews. You are posting new content on your social media multiple times a day. And you almost need to let your customers and your fans and your constituents know that you're making this big push, so they understand
why they see you everywhere.
why they're starting to see you everywhere, and your neighbors and people around you will start to notice, hey, I saw your ad on YouTube, I saw you pop up on Facebook, and that's good. That means it's working, but it's not a quick and easy one and done. It's it's maintaining a consistent effort over time, and you might get to the point where you're exhausted. So.
Well, it is. It's a very, it can be an exhausting process, and that's when you know you're doing it right.
Yes.
And so I think there's definitely a lane, like when you first launch a book, there's a lane of how long you should take, I think, at least a nice 30 days to really push the new product that you have so that it can gain enough traction and marketing momentum to then help you reach those 10,000 readers to extend out and spread. And so another question that I know authors are going to have is, how do you deal with the discomfort of putting yourself out there so much? Because I know for a fact what holds a lot of people back from doing the marketing that they know they need to do is being embarrassed or feeling that somehow promoting yourself is bad. How did you deal with that? So how do you mentally kind of go from I'm really going to push myself and be out there and it's going to look highly promotional? How do you deal with the internal struggle or battle of that?
I think there are probably a couple of strategies that I rely on now.
Okay.
And one is this. It's accountability. It's when you're not doing it by yourself, when you have an action partner that you can work with, so that you have someone else who is not only relying on you, but who is also helping you when you're on a team together and you can work together. It's far easier to be interviewed than it is to just stand and stare into a camera on your own and try to give meaningful content, at least until you're used to it. Another thing that I have realized in addition to that is you really have to believe in what you are promoting. You need to believe in your books. You need to believe in yourself and your ability to give these messages to the people who want them. Because the reality is, if you don't tell them about it, and if you don't do a good job of sharing the message that it's there, people are not going to know. There is so much competition in the world for time, and the amount of books that are going up online every day is astounding because of the self-publishing industry that's kind of gone crazy. There are literally something like 50,000 to 100,000 new titles being launched every single day.
I did not know that. That's a lot of
So
titles.
how do you differentiate yourself?
For sure.
You have to believe in what you're doing. You have to believe in the content of your book. And you just have to be willing to talk about it. And if you can't get past the fact that you're going to be on camera, someone's going to be in your face, they're going to see you, then you are going to limit the success that you can have. You really need to believe in when you're so excited about your story that you can't wait to tell people about it. That's what you need to have all of the time, especially right before you're going to be doing promotions. You've got to remember the reason you wanted to do this was you wanted to get this into the hands of those readers who are going to just love what you have to give them.
Well, and a tip that I would give as well is if this book and your work, which I know is important to you, if it is, you have to look at, I'm willing to sacrifice maybe looking silly or feeling silly for the overall benefit of my reader, who is your customer, right? And that's kind of a way that I like to look at it, is just think about, I'm just going to sacrifice looking foolish because I know that I want this message to go out. I want people to see the work that I've done. And if I want them to see it, I have to sacrifice the internal
discomfort
or all those kind of weird and funny feelings. You just got to be willing to do that. So I like that. Those are great tips. So I think hopefully you guys found some value with this video here. Where can they find more information about you and or your books?
You can find me at writerjodibrown.com, and my books are for sale at any retail outlet, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or from my website. My memoir, The Sun Still Shines, is a multiple award-winning book as well as a bestseller in numerous categories. So if anything, I know that these tips work. So give them a try.
Well, thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.